So Tony, what was your immediate response to business closure during COVID-19?
I suppose the first reaction was how were we going to get look after our staff was our main priority at the time. At the very start of this, there had been no mention of furlough or support or in any way. So we had closed before the furlough kicked in, but we had agreed to pay the staff during that time. But quite quickly, the furlough scheme kicked in, and that was it was a godsend from the government. It was a lifeline for all industries to keep us going. So really, myself and Andrea, my wife, who's the business partner in Coppi and Buba with me, we had taken about 4 weeks off and sort of tried to decide what we would do. So we had, through that time, we decided that we would offer a taste of the cook at home, Coppi and Buba. And it was really about trying to keep the restaurants very relevant at the time. I had also been doing online cookery demonstrations, pre-recorded and live, and there was a great interaction with that, and people were really, you could see people were really embracing the cook at home and the gardening, and they were almost getting back into that good life sort of scenario. So after that, and we had, the more I'd done the cookery online, and people were commenting to me how they must have missed, like one of our signature dishes would be the duck ragu out of Coppi, and people were really asking how they really missed that. So I had tried to do, because it's such a complex dish, I couldn't really, it's one that would take maybe 2 or 3 days to complete at home. So I'd done a cheats version for people, but it quickly became apparent that people wanted to see, still to taste their favourite restaurants at home. So myself and my wife decided to get back in. I went into the kitchen. I was able to bring 2 chefs back, which was quite important, to try and get them back in, and I put it out there to my staff who would want to come back, and two guys straight away wanted back in, out of the monotony of lockdown. I think others enjoyed it, some didn't. And also I have a 20-year-old daughter and an 18-year-old son. I was able to bring them back into help as well with packaging and labelling and getting the orders and all. And my sister and my nephew, who also came down and worked with us. So it was a bit of a family affair, and I was able to bring a couple of staff back as well. But one of the other more important things was trying to give out a lifeline to some of the suppliers that were out there that we have used for a long time. So my first thought was, are we going to be able to get get supplies in first? So as I rang the suppliers, they were delighted that something, I suppose, was coming back. But a lot of suppliers had tried to modify from fish boxes at home to veg boxes at home, which was fantastic. But I think they were glad to get see some momentum coming back from the restaurants that supply, to just give them. It was never really going to be a big money maker for us, but it was more about keeping the restaurants out there in the public domain, keeping them relevant, keeping people talking about them, and so people didn't sort of forget too much about it and cook too much at home. So, but it was good that way.
And what were your thoughts on the Eat Out to Help Out scheme during August?
I thought it was very, very, very good. It was a well thought out scheme, because it probably was more. I know a lot of people seem to think it should be named at September, October, but I think it was more about giving people confidence to get back out again. More than anything else, it was half price up to £10 off the maximum meal, which is great. It'll give you a bit of a discount, but it was more about that confidence of getting people back out there and realizing that as restaurants and industry all over, we've done so much work in the background to put so many safety measures into place, and we haven't taken this lightheartedly. We've really been at the forefront of driving this. I'm vice chair of Hospitality Ulster, and I've sat on a board that was sort of an industry response group that had a direct link into the executive, and we sort of came up with a lot of the sort of the things that we could achieve, and so it took a lot of the burden off the executives, so they could feel confident that they could get their restaurants back open, and we were all on board with doing things as safely as possible.
How do you manage the transition from high touch areas to no touch areas?
Obviously, the first thing we had to do was remove seats. Coppi's quite a large restaurant, and Buba on the flip side is quite a small restaurant. So both of them had their own problems in that way. Coppi being a large space, it was quite easy to remove tables and still keep a bit of a feel. We put up screens originally, but we took them out, and because we liked them so much actually that we took the perspex out and put glass in them now, so they're actually a permanent fixture of the restaurant now. And really it was about us giving confidence. Obviously most people want to feel safe when they come into the restaurants. Some of them don't like, the visors and the masks and the hand sanitizers but they're few and far between where they are. I think that the majority of people are very happy that you've went the extra mile and put that in place. But for me, whenever I'm doing a restaurant, my thing is, obviously you've got food and service, which are very important factors of a restaurant dining out experience. But equally as important is the ambience of a restaurant. So my biggest fear was, how do we reduce capacity, put up screens everywhere, sanitizers, visors, but keep that ambience, and there's sort of things behind the ambience, like, is the heating right, is the lighting right, is the sound level right, trying to get all those things balanced perfectly. And the first thing we found when we put up the dividers and between the blanket seating down the middle was it changed the acoustics of the restaurant. So we had to think hard about that as well. It actually made Coppi a little bit more intimate, where Coppi had always been a high volume restaurant, and the music would go up a bit louder at night. So all that had to change, but we wanted to still keep Coppi as the ethos of Coppi. So it was just tweaking around, setting the volumes right and getting the right music, changing all the playlists, looking at the lighting, and even changing a bit of the lighting around in the restaurant so we could sort of create more of a sort of a nice sort of intimate mood in the restaurant. And it's worked really well, but it would be one of the big things, I think, as a restaurateur, that it is about food and service, obviously, but it's trying to get that ambience level, because to me, ambience is every bit as important as the food and the service.
Chefs are used to working at pace. So how did you find the downtime during COVID-19?
It was good to be able to take a step back and sort of look at your business and analyze your business, without the day-to-day pressures of, it's just the usual pressures of a restaurant of running, making sure all the staff are there and making sure everything's running smoothly. So it really did give us a chance to step back and look at it from the outside in, because when you're in a restaurant every day, you're always looking from the inside out, so it's good to step back a little bit and just have a good look and see, where is the restaurant going to be. Obviously, we have had to diversify. The model has up for all restaurants has completely changed. Volume doesn't exist anymore, so you're still trying to create that balance of giving out a good experience. Obviously, staffing levels need to be higher now because of all the safety practices that are put in place. So it's looking at the model of the restaurant, making sure that you can make it work and making sure it's viable. But having that 4 weeks really give us time to think about how we were going to achieve that and how we would do it.
Well, due to the success of the Eat Out to Help Out scheme, a number of restaurants have extended their discounts throughout September. Is this something that you've considered?
No, we wouldn't consider it at all. I think it was great when it was there, and it was brilliant to bring confidence back. But I do think hospitality as an industry has been struggling for a lot of years, even before this pandemic started. I do think the industries, there's a lot of, we need to change the whole model, all staff on minimum wage and working long hours in the kitchen, and change all that. Our chefs don't work any more than 40 hours a week, and they haven't done for a long time. We changed that years ago, because I do think it's important to have that work-life balance. But if we keep discounting and discounting and discounting, the profit line becomes so small that you have to revert back to the old ways, where chefs are doing 60, 70 hours a week in the kitchen. Everybody's getting burnt out and tired. We had a massive problem with recruitment for our industry, trying to get people out before this pandemic even started. During the pandemic, it seems a lot of chefs have changed industry, and that's even become Not so much now, because obviously we're down on turnover at the minute, but it will in the future as we come out of the pandemic, whatever way that looks in the next couple of years. We're going to really be struggling to find staff to come into our industry. I think by offering really all these discounts constantly, like really cheap lunches and cheap pre-theatre meals, and I think it actually does devalue hospitality as an industry. And it makes people just really want to go out for the bargains, and then everybody tries to undercut each other. But it's not good for it's just really not good for the workforce and for everything else going forward. And I just think we need to professionalise hospitality to a far greater than it ever has been before, where it is actually a desirable industry to work.
Tony, you do a lot of work with the Ulster University Business Academy to promote hospitality as a career. Can you explain why this is important to you?
I really think that we need to encourage the next generation to come through. A lot of emphasis is put on kids now to go to university, to come through, but the sort of trades like the hospitality industry, even electricians, plumbers, joiners, they're sort of disappearing a lot. You know, we actually do need to get almost like, I don't know if it's an apprenticeship scheme back up and running, or something that would encourage kids. Not all kids are academic, and not all kids want to go on to university. I certainly wasn't, and but that doesn't mean it's wrong, you know. But it's good to have a good outlet for that. So I want to help encourage people to come into our industry. But I do think there's a lot of work to be done in hospitality as a whole to professionalise it, and to make it a desirable industry to come into, because at the minute it's not, you know, and kids are discouraged, especially going into kitchens, because of all the bad press over years of a chef standing at the pass, screaming, shouting, working hard hours, you know, working antisocial hours, off working every weekend. So it's trying to change that image of the industry.
Tony, what do you think can be done to combat no-shows at restaurants? Do you think that reserving a table online makes visitors less inclined to honour the reservation?
Yes, it does. But we have now put on our online booking system takes credit card details now. So if you don't, and you can cancel your table up to an hour, half an hour beforehand. We understand things happen, and we're not saying you shouldn't be allowed to cancel. Of course you can cancel. When people cancel, contact us, tell us. We are delighted and more than happy, because we usually have a waiting list of people waiting to take those tables. But now we do take a £20 per head off you now if you don't show up. We were going to go in at £10, but we decided to make it so people understand that how much it costs a restaurant. I know people say, "Oh, but you can sell that table." But if we're holding the table for 8 o'clock, we can't even think about selling that table until at least 8:30. But we also can't sell that table beforehand. So there's a whole 2.5 hour slot that you've missed out on that night, so that the table can't be used. Because if we give it away 5 minutes after your booking and you walk in 10 minutes late, then we're the worst in the world. So it's having that balance. But we've found now, since we've started taking the credit card details, that it has completely stopped now, and we haven't had any at all. Some people don't like it at all and feel, but we're the thing saying, well, that's okay but we do need to take these details to secure. The majority of people who, I mean, anytime I go to London or anywhere like that and I book into a restaurant, even Dublin, they all take my credit card details online now. So I think it's just has to become the norm. Like none of us as restaurants, we don't want to be penalising anybody for not showing up. But if you can go online and book, you can go online and cancel, or you can ring the restaurant and cancel. You know, it's Res Diary, Open Table, all these booking systems allow you, and it's just one button. Do you want to cancel your reservation? You hit one button, yes. It's very easy.
Knowing what we do know now, how do you envisage the next 6 months? And do you have any important messages for the industry?
I think the next 6 months, Guy, are going to be really, really, really crucial. And I would advise anybody out there to really sit down. And obviously we can't really forecast or at the minute, because we really don't, we're in uncharted waters and we really don't know what the month by month is going to hold for us. But it's really to look at your business model. I mean, we've got September, October, November coming in. Usually December comes by, we all rely on December. We can maybe do 3 months trade in a month of December. That's not going to be there this year. We've had people trying to book Christmas parties, but you don't even know what you can tell them at the minute, because we don't know how you can provisionally take a booking, but we have to wait and see what the guidelines are closer to the time. And then it's going to be a struggle to get past that Christmas, and then you're into January, February, which again are notoriously quiet months for our industry. So it's really sitting down, trying to plan out how do you get to that point, because even then we come into March and hopefully things start to come around. You know, March we'll see where we are around that time, but then everybody in the restaurant industry has probably deferred quite a large VAT bill. They've potentially taken on a bounce back loan of some sort. Then they're going to want that paid back, you know. So you're going to have to start looking at what way will the inland revenue want their deferred VAT back? Are they going to let us pay it off over time? How much time will that be? And will we really be able to afford to do that? And then as the bounce back loans kick in as well. So really, I would just urge everybody to have a really good think about right up until the end of the financial year, and then starting from April, how do you start the next year? Because you will have these payback loans of VATs and bounce back loans to pay back. So it's really just trying to be ahead and plan. And I mean, obviously we've had the 5% VAT on food cut. I'm still looking at that. It's very much, we're working on the 20%. And I'm still putting that into a separate account. So that sits there and takes over. I'll just leave it there, and hopefully come next year, there'll be enough in there to help us get started and to get away. But I would just urge people to sort of think about that and try and put some money away, even if it's a separate account. Don't touch it. And then at least it's something there to get 2021 hopefully off to a better start.
Have you identified any opportunities or positives during COVID-19?
During lockdown, we had actually launched, before the pandemic started, we had the idea of launching a Southeast Asian concept called Lucky Devil. Now, through the at-home boxes, we actually launched that through the lockdown, and we were selling out every week, and there was a huge demand for this. And to me, it's something myself and Andrea are maybe going to look into. We are looking into it at the minute, you know, maybe on a very more casual. It was going to be a restaurant sort of type scenario, but you know, we're maybe looking at that now as a more very casual takeaway sort of concept. You know, that might be something that we'd look into, because the restaurant sector is so hard at the minute, and so many restrictions, that it's just maybe another outlet that we might look to explore in the next few months.